His fingers had already fallen off. King Baldwin IV of Jerusalem could barely grip his sword. Leprosy was eating him alive at 21 years old. Yet, on this scorching morning, in 1182, this dying monarch, wrapped in silk bandages, would lead 750 knights against an army that stretched to the horizon like a dark sea. 30,000 of Islam's finest warriors under the legendary Saladin. When Saladin's scouts galloped back with their report, only 750 knights approaching, they laughed. A 40-to-1 numerical disadvantage. Military suicide. A massacre waiting to happen. But by sunset, 2,000 Muslim warriors would lie dead in the dust, while the tiny Crusader force remained intact, bloodied but unbroken, having achieved what every military manual said was impossible. 3 questions have haunted military historians for 8 centuries. How did a force so vastly outnumbered not just survive, but triumph against one of history's greatest generals? What revolutionary tactics made Crusader infantry suddenly invincible against the feared Turkish cavalry that had conquered from Egypt to Syria? And why did winning this miraculous victory actually accelerate the Kingdom of Jerusalem's destruction? By the end of this exploration, you'll understand how a terminally ill 21-year-old king used a revolutionary tactical formation to achieve the impossible. Why Saladin's own Arab chroniclers tried to hide what really happened on that blood-soaked field, and the cruel strategic trap that would ultimately doom the victors despite their triumph. The answers involve a secret formation called the Iron Hedgehog that would change medieval warfare, a controversial decision to strip castle garrisons that should have meant disaster, and a lesson in economic warfare that Saladin would use to destroy the Crusader kingdom just 5 years later at Hattin. But first, you need to understand the powder keg about to explode. Before we dive into this forgotten tactical masterpiece, smash that like button and subscribe to Maproom Battles for the battles that changed history. Comment, what's the greatest underdog victory in military history? To understand how this impossible victory happened, let me take you to the scorching summer when a broken truce set the Levant ablaze. The year 1180 had brought exhausted peace to the Holy Land. A fragile 2-year truce between the Christian kingdom of Jerusalem and Saladin's growing Ayyubid empire offered both sides desperately needed time to regroup, recover, rebuild. Baldwin IV, the Leper King, ruled from Jerusalem despite his ravaging disease. At just 19, he'd already proven himself a brilliant tactician at the Battle of Montgisard in 1177, where he'd defeated Saladin with an outnumbered force. But his body was failing faster than his kingdom. Leprosy was consuming him piece by piece, his hands, his face, his nerves. Facing him stood Saladin Salah ad-Din, Yusuf ibn Ayyub, the merciful conqueror, who'd united Syria and Egypt under Islamic rule through a combination of military genius and diplomatic brilliance. Where previous Muslim leaders had squabbled endlessly among themselves, weakening Islam's position, Saladin brought unity, discipline, and single-minded purpose the reconquest of Jerusalem. But here's what the sanitized chronicles don't tell you. The real catalyst for war wasn't religious fervor or holy mission. It was pure, naked greed. Reynald de Chatillon, the Mad Wolf of Kerak, controlled the vital trade routes between Damascus and Egypt from his massive fortress at Kerak. Despite the truce that both kingdoms had sworn to honor, he couldn't resist the glittering caravans passing below his walls like treasure trains. In late 1181, Reynald attacked a massive caravan traveling from Damascus to Mecca. Among the travelers was Saladin's own sister. The plunder was enormous, 200,000 dinars in goods, silk, spices, gold. When Saladin sent formal diplomatic envoys demanding compensation and the immediate return of all captives, Renaud laughed in their faces. "Let your Muhammad come and save them," he supposedly replied, an insult so profound it made even fellow Crusaders wince. The calculated insult shattered the fragile peace like glass. Saladin called for jihad, summoning warriors from across his vast empire. By May 1182, an army of 30,000 men had gathered at Damascus, the largest Muslim force assembled since the First Crusade. Regular cavalry, mounted Turkish archers, volunteer jihadi fighters seeking martyrdom, and professional Mamluks elite slave soldiers who formed Islam's military aristocracy. The Kingdom of Jerusalem faced catastrophe. Baldwin could muster perhaps 1,200 knights from his entire realm, and that's counting every single knight from every fortress and city. Most defended isolated castles scattered across a territory stretching from modern Lebanon to the Red Sea. The kingdom's strength was its fortresses' massive stone strongholds that could withstand months of siege. But that was also its fatal weakness. Defending everywhere meant being strong nowhere. Then, something happened that shouldn't have been possible. Baldwin ordered the unthinkable: strip the garrisons. Leave only skeleton crews of minimum defenders in the castles. Concentrate every available man into one mobile field army. It was either genius or suicide. Military convention said you never abandoned your fortresses. Castles were the backbone of medieval defense. But Baldwin was gambling everything on one principle. If Saladin's army could be defeated in the field, the fortresses wouldn't matter. If Saladin won the field battle, the fortresses would fall anyway. As 30,000 warriors marched south toward 750 knights, the stage was set for annihilation or miracle. Saladin's host that emerged from Damascus in May 1182 defied comprehension. You have to understand what 30,000 men actually looks like on the march. If they marched in column formation, the army would stretch for over 15 miles. You could stand at the front and not see the rear, even on flat ground. Their daily food consumption equaled a small city, thousands of pounds of grain, hundreds of sheep and goats slaughtered daily. The dust cloud from their march could be seen from 20 miles away, a brown haze rising like smoke. The core of Saladin's army consisted of 12,000 mounted archers, Turks and Kurds, who could loose arrows at full gallop with devastating accuracy. These weren't the heavy armored knights of Europe. These were light cavalry, trained from childhood. Men who could ride for 16 hours without rest and shoot accurately while moving at speed. Behind them came 8,000 regular cavalry, armed with lances and curved sabers, the shock troops who would finish what the archers started. The remaining 10,000 included infantry with spears and shields, military engineers hauling siege equipment, and irregular volunteers seeking paradise through jihad against the infidel. The numbers become staggering when you calculate firepower. At peak battle tempo, these 12,000 mounted archers could theoretically unleash 30,000 arrows per minute, a literal storm of steel. Each warrior carried 2 composite bows and 60 arrows. The logistics alone represented one of medieval history's greatest military achievements, moving 30,000 men, 40,000 horses, supplies for weeks, across hostile territory. Against this oceanic force, Baldwin assembled his pitiful 750 knights and 4,000 infantry scraped from every garrison in the kingdom. But these weren't ordinary soldiers. Each knight represented years of intensive training, wearing 80 pounds of armor that cost as much as an entire village. Chainmail from neck to knee, steel helmet, sword, lance, dagger, a warhorse worth a fortune. The infantry, though common soldiers, were veterans hardened by constant frontier warfare, men who'd survived years on the bleeding edge between Christianity and Islam. Baldwin himself could barely stand. Contemporary witnesses described how attendants had to physically lift him onto his horse, his hands wrapped in silk bandages to hide their decay. Yet his mind remained sharp as the finest Damascus steel. Beside him rode Raymond, the third of Tripoli, the kingdom's most experienced commander, a man who'd spent years as Saladin's prisoner and understood Muslim tactics intimately. Raymond had urged caution against stripping the castles bare. Better to lose villages than lose the kingdom, he'd warned in council. But Baldwin had chosen his ground with surgical precision. Belvoir Castle commanded the Jordan Valley from its hilltop perch, rising 500 feet above the surrounding plains. Its limestone walls controlled the main route from Damascus to Jerusalem. Saladin couldn't bypass it without exposing his supply lines to raids. The castle was a dagger pointed at his throat. Then came the psychological warfare that the Muslim chroniclers tried to hide. Saladin's raiders swept through the Jordan Valley systematically, burning Christian villages with methodical efficiency. From Belvoir's walls, Crusaders watched smoke pillars rise as their subjects' homes turned to ash. Each burning village meant lost tax revenue, fewer recruits, diminished supplies. Saladin was teaching a cruel lesson in economic warfare. You don't need to defeat the army if you can destroy the economy that sustains it. The Muslim chroniclers tried to hide this part of the campaign. Their own accounts gloss over the systematic destruction, preferring to focus on military glory. But Crusader records preserve the horror in detail. 60 villages reduced to charred earth in 3 days. Women and children fleeing to Belvoir's walls with nothing but the clothes on their backs. The kingdom bleeding out through 1,000 small wounds. But Saladin had made a critical miscalculation in his strategy. By concentrating on economic destruction, burning, looting, terrorizing, he'd given Baldwin precious time to execute his desperate plan. While Muslim cavalry torched villages, Crusader forces performed something unprecedented in medieval warfare. Infantry and cavalry drilled together in a revolutionary formation that would change how battles were fought. Modern military historians still can't explain how they developed it so quickly. Usually, tactical innovations take years to perfect. The Iron Hedgehog, a name that appears in Latin, chronicles as Farinus Ericus, represented a complete reimagining of how foot soldiers and mounted knights could work together. As dawn broke over Belvoir's limestone walls on that fateful morning, 2 armies prepared for a clash that would rewrite the rules of medieval warfare. Dawn at Belvoir would birth a new kind of warfare. As first light painted the castle walls gold, Baldwin's tiny army descended from the heights in perfect formation. What Saladin's scouts saw defied every principle of Crusader tactics they'd ever studied. Instead of knights charging ahead with glory-hungry recklessness while infantry struggled behind, the entire force moved as one coordinated organism. The 750 knights formed the center and rear, not the vanguard, while 4,000 infantry created an iron shell around them. But this was no simple defensive circle like frightened men forming a ring. The formation bristled with 14-foot pikes, long spears that created a forest of steel points. Crossbowmen filled the gaps between spearmen, and knights waited like coiled springs, ready to countercharge through designated gaps in the pike wall. 12,000 arrows darkened the morning sky as Turkish mounted archers unleashed their first volleys. This was the standard Muslim tactic that had shattered countless armies, shower the enemy with arrows while staying beyond reach. Wear them down, then charge when they break. But then physics took over. The Crusader formation raised shields in perfect unison, creating an overlapping shell like Roman testudo. Arrows designed to pierce chainmail at 50 yards lost most of their penetrating power at the 200-yard range. The mounted archers preferred for safety. The ground literally shook as 8,000 Muslim cavalry prepared for the first probing charge. Their commander, Emir Muzaffar al-Din, had broken Christian armies from Spain to Syria. He watched carefully for gaps, for panic, for the moment when discipline cracked and the formation dissolved. The first charge hit like thunder rolling across the valley. 500 Mamluks in the vanguard, the finest heavy cavalry in Islam. Elite slave soldiers, worth fortunes, smashed into the Crusader line at full gallop. This is where it gets genuinely insane. Instead of breaking like every formation should when hit by charging cavalry, the infantry line bent backward like a bow, absorbing the impact. Pikes shattered. Men screamed. Horses reared, eyes rolling white with terror. But the line held. Here's the detail that changes everything about this battle. As the Muslim cavalry pulled back to regroup for another charge, crossbow bolts erupted from the Crusader formation like a swarm of steel hornets. At 50 yards, point-blank range in medieval terms, a crossbow bolt could punch through chainmail armor like paper. In 30 seconds of sustained fire, 80 Mamluk elite lay dead or dying, their expensive armor useless. But then Baldwin collapsed mid-command. The disease that was eating his body chose this critical moment to strike. Witnesses reported him falling from his horse, caught by his bodyguard before hitting the ground. His face was a mask of agony. Yet even from a litter literally being carried on a stretcher by his men, the Leper King continued directing the battle with hand signals and whispered commands. Hold formation. A gosped. Voice barely audible. Let them come to us. The pattern repeated with methodical brutality. Muslim charges. The line bending but not breaking. Devastating crossbow volleys as attackers withdrew. What happened in the next 30 seconds would change medieval warfare forever. Frustrated by the impenetrable defensive formation, Turkish commanders ordered their specialty, the feigned retreat. 500 cavalry charged again, but this time they fled after minimal contact, hoping to draw eager knights into pursuit where they could be surrounded and slaughtered. It had worked countless times before against European armies. Young knights, blood hot with battle fury and dreams of glory, would chase the fleeing enemy, only to be surrounded and cut down when the Turks wheeled around. But the Crusaders had one advantage nobody expected in medieval warfare: absolute discipline, born of desperation. Not a single knight broke formation. The infantry held their ground like statues carved from stone. The feigned retreat terror of steppe warfare tactics had failed completely. Saladin watched from his command position on a nearby hill, personally counting Crusader casualties, measuring their cohesion with a general's eye. His calculation was precise and professional. Traditional tactics weren't working. The Iron Hedgehog was proving impervious to every standard approach in the Muslim tactical playbook. What followed would shatter everything Saladin thought he knew about Crusader capabilities. Instead of waiting passively, hoping to survive, Baldwin ordered something unprecedented. The entire formation began advancing, not charging recklessly, advancing, step by synchronized step. The Iron Hedgehog rolled forward across the plain like some medieval war machine. Imagine the sound of 4,750 men moving in perfect unison, the rhythmic crash of thousands of armored feet, the forest of pikes catching morning sunlight. The psychological impact was devastating. Muslim cavalry, trained for mobility and fluid combat, used to dictating the terms of engagement, faced an advancing fortress of steel and determination. Then Saladin gave the order that would transform disciplined advance into chaotic hell. Full assault. All cavalry divisions. Saladin's command echoed across the Muslim lines, transmitted by drums and horns. 8,000 horsemen thundered forward in the largest cavalry charge of the Third Crusade era. The ground shook with such violence that men inside Belvoir Castle, a mile away, later swore the walls trembled. The sensory overload was overwhelming. Dust clouds rising 100 feet into the air. The scream of thousands of horses. The crash of steel on wood as lances met pike shafts. The Crusader line disappeared completely in a maelstrom of horses, dust, and violence. But then came the moment that would echo through centuries of military history textbooks. The Iron Hedgehog didn't just bend, it flexed like a living thing. As Muslim cavalry crashed into one section, that portion of the line would buckle backward while adjacent sections swung inward like closing doors. The attacking cavalry found themselves not breaking through victoriously, but being funneled into designated kill zones. Crossbow bolts flew from 3 directions into packed masses of horsemen unable to maneuver. At point-blank range, the devastation was absolute. A Templar knight later wrote, "The Saracens fell like wheat before the scythe. Their magnificent cavalry, pride of Islam, died pressed against our pikes, unable to advance or retreat. I have never seen such slaughter. In 20 minutes, 400 Muslim cavalry lay dead or dying. The mathematics were brutal and undeniable. At this exchange rate, Saladin would lose his entire mounted force before breaking the formation. The attacking waves pulled back, leaving a carpet of dead horses and men. But Saladin wasn't retreating. He was learning, adapting, calculating. The next assault combined every Turkish tactical trick developed over centuries. 2,000 light cavalry attacked in waves, each group feigning retreat after minimal contact. They wheeled, charged from new angles, tried desperately to draw out impetuous knights. Mounted archers galloped past at 30 yards, each rider loosing 6 arrows in as many seconds before wheeling away. What happened next defied all military logic. The Crusader infantry began shooting back effectively. Hidden among the pikemen were Genoese crossbowmen, Europe's finest marksmen, mercenaries worth their weight in silver. As Turkish cavalry swept past at galloping speed, thinking themselves safe, crossbow bolts found gaps in their lighter armor. This single decision would determine whether Christianity survived in the East. Baldwin, despite barely remaining conscious, had distributed his missile troops throughout the formation rather than concentrating them in one section. every part of the formation could defend itself against horse archers. The feigned retreat escalated into a deadly dance. Groups of 50 to 100 cavalry would charge directly at one spot, break at the last second, wheel around, attempting to draw pursuit. The discipline required to resist was superhuman. Young knights watching enemies flee gripped their reins until their knuckles went white. But the formation held. Statistical shock. In this phase alone, Crusader crossbowmen expended 8,000 bolts. Each bolt represented a potential kill at close range. Muslim casualties mounted steadily, while Crusader losses remained minimal. The Iron Hedgehog was bleeding Saladin's army white. But the real battle was just beginning. Frustrated by failed cavalry charges, Muslim commanders ordered their infantry forward, supported by dismounted knights. Now the battle transformed into grinding melee combat, the one thing the outnumbered Crusaders couldn't afford. Individual combat erupted all along the line. A Hospitaller sergeant held his section with 3 arrows protruding from his chainmail, refusing to fall. A Muslim emir died trying to break through to Baldwin's banner, cut down by an anonymous spearman whose name history never recorded. The Latin chronicles preserve names lost to history. Brother William, who held a gap alone for critical minutes. Sergeant Garcia, who killed 6 attackers before falling. But then the Crusaders played their hidden card. The Iron Hedgehog had one more secret capability. It could attack. At a horn signal, sections of the pike wall suddenly opened like doors. Through these gaps poured mounted knights in tight wedge formations, smashing into disorganized Muslim infantry, still reeling from their failed assault against the pikes. The countercharge was perfectly timed. Muslim foot soldiers pressed against the pike wall couldn't form defensive ranks against the sudden cavalry assault. Knights carved bloody paths through packed enemies before wheeling back through the same gaps they'd exited. The formation sealed behind them like water closing. 400 more Muslim dead in 5 minutes. But Saladin had seen tactics like this before. At Montgazard in 1177, young Baldwin had used similar combined arms tactics. The Sultan prepared his calculated response. In the next 60 seconds, medieval warfare would change forever. Every archer, maximum rate. Saladin's command unleashed literal hell. 12,000 mounted archers began circling the Crusader formation at varying distances, each man loosing arrows as fast as he could knock them, a sustained fire that turned archery into artillery. 30,000 arrows per minute. A literal steel rain that turned the sky dark and made the sun dim. The Crusader shield wall transformed into a turtle shell, each man covering himself and his neighbor with overlapping shields. Arrows struck with such density that shields resembled porcupines. But mathematics was about to meet medieval courage. Even with shields raised, gaps existed, necks, legs, sword arms exposed during movement. Men began falling. A wounded knight later described the experience. The arrows fell like hail in a winter storm. You couldn't see the sun through the cloud of shafts. Men prayed aloud, thinking the last day had come. My shield carried 18 arrow shafts. When the storm ended, I counted them. But the Crusaders had prepared for this eventuality. Pavise shield's massive rectangular barriers, normally used in siege warfare, had been distributed throughout the formation. These created sheltered spaces where wounded could be dragged, where crossbowmen could reload in relative safety. What Saladin saw next made him reconsider everything he thought he knew about warfare. Despite the arrow storm, despite mounting casualties, the Iron Hedgehog continued its inexorable advance, step by bloody step, leaving dead and wounded, but never breaking formation, never stopping. The psychological impact on Muslim morale was devastating. Warriors who'd conquered from Egypt to Syria were being systematically destroyed by a force they outnumbered 40-1. Then came the order that shocked both armies. From his command hill, Saladin performed the calculation that marked him as history's greatest Islamic general. His army had lost 2,000 dead against 180 Crusaders. The exchange rate was catastrophic. Worse, his army's morale was visibly cracking. Warriors who'd thought this would be an easy slaughter were being ground down by an enemy that wouldn't die. "Signal the withdrawal," Saladin commanded calmly. His emirs protested immediately. They still had overwhelming numbers, 28,000 men against perhaps 4,000 effective Crusaders. But Saladin saw what they didn't. What made him a strategic genius? The Iron Hedgehog could be defeated eventually, but at what cost? Lose 10,000 men to kill 750 knights. The victory would be meaningless. He'd have no army left to continue the campaign. The withdrawal was masterful, controlled, disciplined, maintaining face while preserving force. Muslim cavalry pulled back in stages, maintaining arrow harassment to prevent Crusader pursuit. Infantry formed rear guard, while the baggage train retreated northward. As Muslim horns sounded retreat, the Crusaders had achieved the impossible. But their victory carried seeds of catastrophe. The moment everything changed was when Baldwin, barely conscious, ordered hold position. No pursuit. The exhausted Crusaders watched their tormentors retreat, too tired to even cheer. Knights collapsed where they stood, armor covered in dents and blood. Infantry leaned on blood-slicked pikes, gasping. The Iron Hedgehog finally dissolved into exhausted humanity. The immediate toll was staggering by any measure. 2,000 Muslim dead carpeted the battlefield. Mamluks, regular cavalry, volunteer jihadis. The Crusaders had lost 180 dead, 400 wounded, seriously enough to remove them from future fighting. By medieval standards, the casualty ratio was impossible. Battles this lopsided happened only in chronicles written decades later by partisan monks, growing in the telling. But this was real, verified by both Christian and Muslim sources. Baldwin had to be carried from the field on a litter, his body finally surrendering to exhaustion and disease. Raymond of Tripoli, blood streaming from a scalp wound, supervised collecting the wounded and organizing defenses in case Saladin returned. The kingdom's entire field army could barely muster 500 effective fighters. The evening revealed the true cost hidden by tactical victory. Yes, they'd won a miraculous battle, but the economic damage was catastrophic. Saladin's systematic village burning had worked perfectly. 60 villages lay in ashes. The kingdom's tax base for the next year was gone. No crops meant no revenue, meant no money to hire soldiers or maintain castles. Noble prisoners presented another anomaly. Typically, medieval battles ended with ransom negotiations for captured nobles. War was a business. But this battle had produced almost no prisoners. The fighting had been too intense, too desperate. Muslim nobles had died fighting, rather than surrender to a force they outnumbered so vastly the shame would have been unbearable. The few Crusader knights who fell had been immediately killed. No quarter in this savage arithmetic. In the Crusader camp that night, exhaustion overwhelmed celebration. Men prayed in gratitude for survival, but also in fear. They'd survived today, but what about tomorrow? The Muslim camp, 3 miles distant, glowed with thousands of fires. Saladin still commanded 28,000 men. The Crusaders couldn't possibly fight another such battle. Their victory was real but fragile. But in winning at Belvoir, the Crusaders had sealed their doom through a strategic trap they didn't see. The victory at Belvoir revealed a fatal strategic trap that would doom the Kingdom of Jerusalem within 5 years. Baldwin had proven conclusively that concentrated Crusader forces using innovative tactics could defeat much larger Muslim armies. But concentration meant stripping garrisons, leaving territories defenseless against raiders who could burn and loot unopposed. You're watching the birth of economic warfare in its medieval form. Saladin had discovered the kingdom's Achilles heel through painful experience. It didn't matter if Crusaders won every pitched battle if they had no economy to sustain their expensive castles and knights. The 60 burned villages represented roughly 100,000 dinars in lost agricultural revenue. That equaled the cost of maintaining 500 knights for an entire year. One campaign had wiped out a year's worth of military budget. The path to Hattin was now clear in Saladin's strategic mind. He wouldn't seek pitched battles against concentrated Crusader forces he'd just been taught that lesson in blood. Instead, he'd force them to defend everywhere at once. Raid here, threaten there, besiege an isolated castle, burn more villages. The kingdom would bleed out through 1,000 cuts. Modern military historians recognize Belvoir as a precursor to contemporary asymmetric warfare. The weaker force achieved tactical victory through superior unit cohesion and innovative tactics. But strategic victory belonged to the force that could sustain operations indefinitely. Saladin could replace his losses from a vast empire. Baldwin couldn't. The Iron Hedgehog formation itself deserves recognition as one of history's great tactical innovations that history forgot. Combining pike squares, integrated missile troops, and rapid countercharge capability through designated gaps. It presaged the Swiss pike formations and Spanish tercios by 3 centuries. Yet it died with the kingdom that created it, requiring trained, disciplined troops the Crusader states couldn't maintain over time. 5 years later, at Hattin in 1187, Saladin applied every lesson learned from Belvoir with devastating effect. He forced the Crusader army to abandon water sources in the July heat. He exhausted them with constant harassment. Then he struck when they finally broke formation in desperation. The kingdom that had seemed invincible at Belvoir collapsed in a single catastrophic day. Think about what this means for understanding military history. Sometimes winning every battle guarantees losing the war. The Crusaders' tactical genius at Belvoir taught their enemy the exact strategy that would destroy them. Victory carried the seeds of ultimate defeat. The dying king who defied 30,000 warriors had won a victory that would echo through eternity and doom his kingdom within 5 years. Baldwin IV died in 1185, just 3 years after Belvoir. His body was finally consumed by disease at age 24. He never knew that his greatest triumph had ensured Christianity's eventual expulsion from Jerusalem. The age of chivalric warfare, where battles were decided by knightly courage and tactical brilliance, ended in a single afternoon at Belvoir. In its place rose a crueler arithmetic economics over heroics, attrition over glory, strategic patience over tactical brilliance. Saladin had learned the ultimate lesson: to defeat the Iron Hedgehog. You didn't attack it directly, you starved it. And in 1187, at Hattin, that's exactly what he did. Let's talk about the modern parallels, because Belvoir teaches lessons that echo through every war since. Think about tactical victory versus strategic defeat. Crusaders won the battle, lost the war. Modern every Pyrrhic victory. America won every major battle in Vietnam, lost the war. Soviet Union won battles in Afghanistan, lost the war. Winning battles doesn't mean winning wars. Think about the concentration dilemma. Baldwin stripped garrisons to create field army. Modern every resource allocation problem. Defend everywhere equals weak everywhere. Iraq, Afghanistan, not enough troops to secure everything. Think about economic warfare. Saladin burned 60 villages, destroyed tax base. Modern sanctions, blockades, infrastructure targeting. Sherman's march, strategic bombing, attacking the economy, not just the army. Think about the Iron Hedgehog formation. Combined arms infantry plus cavalry plus archers integrated. Modern every combined arms doctrine. Tanks plus infantry plus artillery plus air support. Integration force multiplier. Think about the feigned retreat. Mongols, Turks pretended to run, then surrounded pursuers. Modern every tactical deception. Ambushes, baiting enemy into kill zones. Think about the discipline under fire. Crusaders resisted feigned retreats through discipline. Modern every military's training goal. Unit cohesion under stress. Marines, special forces. Discipline saves lives. Think about the crossbow effectiveness. 50-yard range punched through armor. Modern every weapon with sweet spot range. RPGs effective certain ranges. Small arms, effective ranges matter. Think about the arrow storm. 30,000 arrows per minute equals suppressive fire. Modern artillery barrages. Machine gun fire. Volume of fire pins enemies. Think about the Pavesi shields. Mobile cover for reloading. Modern every infantry doctrine. Use cover. Fighting positions. Sandbags. Vehicles. Buildings. Think about the counterattack through gaps. Formation opened. Cavalry charged. Sealed again. Modern every counterattack doctrine. Reserves exploit breakthroughs. Mobile defense. Think about the 40-to-1 odds. Outnumbered but won through tactics. Modern every underdog victory. Israeli wars. Korean War. Chosen reservoir. Quality over quantity sometimes. Think about the leper king commanding from litter. Leadership despite disability. Modern every leader who perseveres. FDR wheelchair. Hawking ALS. Physical limitation doesn't mean mental. Think about the mercenary crossbowmen. Genoese professionals, not national troops. Modern every use of contractors. PMCs. Blackwater. Wagner Group. Mercenaries in modern war. Think about the casualty ratio. 2,000 versus 180 equals 11 to 1. Modern technological advantages create ratios. Gulf War, precision weapons, Vietnam body counts, though inflated. Think about the withdrawal decision. Saladin pulled back despite numbers. Modern knowing when to disengage. Every tactical withdrawal, preserving force for future. Think about the garrison stripping. Risky concentration. Modern economy of force, leaving areas undefended to mass elsewhere. Operational risk. Think about the village burning. Deny resources. Depopulate areas. Modern scorched earth continues. Russia versus Napoleon. Germany. Syria displacement. Think about the strategic patience. Saladin willing to lose battle to win war. Modern every long-term strategy. Chinese strategic patience. Russian winter strategy. Think about the morale collapse. Muslim troops demoralized despite numbers. Modern morale matters as much as materiel. Every broken army. Think about the no-quarter battle. No prisoners taken. Modern every brutal fight. Stalingrad. Iwo Jima. When surrender isn't option. Think about the formation flexibility. Iron hedgehog bent without breaking. Modern every adaptive tactic. Fluid response to threats. OODA loop. Think about the logistics challenge. 30,000 men need tons of food daily. Modern logistics still determines campaigns. Fuel, ammunition, food, amateur tactics, professionals, logistics. Think about the dust cloud visible 20 miles. Large forces hard to hide. Modern satellite surveillance. Drones. Hiding armies nearly impossible now. Think about the religious motivation. Jihad versus crusade. Modern every ideological conflict. Is Al-Qaeda. Religious motivation powerful. Think about the unified versus fragmented. Saladin united. Crusaders fragmented. Modern coalition weaknesses. Different languages. Goals. Commands. Think about the command from litter. Baldwin incapacitated but commanding. Modern remote command. Generals in bunkers. Presidents in situation rooms. Think about the technical innovation. Iron hedgehog. New tactic. Modern every innovation. Blitzkrieg. Carrier warfare. Drones. Innovation advantage temporary. Think about the copycat tactics. Saladin learned from Belvoir. Modern every enemy adapts. Insurgents adapt to U.S. tactics. IEDs evolved. Think about the economic calculation. 100,000 dinars equals 500 nights per year. Modern cost benefit in war. Afghanistan cost trillions. What's victory worth? Think about the 5-year consequence. Belvoir, 1182. Hattin, 1187. Modern, long-term strategic effects. WWI to WW2IE. Versailles conséquence. Think about the water deprivation. Hattin forced from water sources. Modern water as weapon. Every desert campaign. Logistics of hydration, critical. Think about the tactical brilliance teaching enemy. Crusaders showed Saladin what to avoid. Modern every demonstration of capability. Showing capabilities risks enemy learning. Think about the asymmetric warfare evolution. Saladin used raids, not battles. Modern insurgency. Guerrilla warfare. Afghanistan. Vietnam. Avoiding enemy strengths. Think about the castle network vulnerability. Scattered strongpoints need garrisons. Modern every base network. FOBs in Afghanistan, Iraq. Dispersion, vulnerability. Think about the professional versus levy. Crusader Knights professional. Muslims mixed. Modern volunteer versus conscript. All volunteer force quality advantages. Think about the cavalry charge obsolescence. Pike formations defeated cavalry. Modern every weapon system eventually countered. Cavalry to tanks, to ATGMs. Think about the archery volume. Composite bows rapid fire. Modern rate of fire evolution. Automatic weapons. Artillery. Overwhelming firepower. Think about the armor weight. 80 pounds. Exhausting. Modern soldier load. Body armor. Equipment. Weight affects mobility. Think about the horse casualties. Targeting horses, unhorsed knights. Modern targeting platforms. Destroying tanks. Helicopters. Mobility kill. Think about the heat factor. Scorching summer affected both sides. Modern environmental factors. Desert heat. Arctic cold. Environment as enemy. Think about the disease factor. Baldwin's leprosy. Others sick. Modern disease in campaigns. Malaria. Dysentery. Medical care evolution. Think about the banner targeting. Muslims shot at standards. Modern command post targeting. Headquarters vulnerable. Decapitation strikes. Think about the horn signals. Communication in battle. Modern radio. Satellite. Communications crucial. Vulnerable. Think about the religious sites. Fighting for Jerusalem. Modern every territorial conflict. Religious sites. Mecca. Jerusalem. Kashmir. Symbolic value. Think about the brother kingdom helping. Tripoli sent troops. Modern every alliance. NATO Article 5. Collective defense. Think about the tribute. Raid cycle. Reynald raided despite truce. Modern ceasefire violations. Every frozen conflict. Truces break. Think about the sister in caravan. Saladin's sister captured. Modern targeting families. Sanctions on families. Collective punishment debates. Think about the fortress strategy. Belvoir commanded valley. Modern every strategic point. Strait of Hormuz. Suez. Geography determines strategy. Think about the provocation. Reynald's insult sparked war. Modern every casus belli. Gulf of Tonkin. WMDs in Iraq. Justifications for war. Think about the unified command. Saladin commanded personally. Modern unity of command principle. Eisenhower. Schuhina. Schwarzkopf. Clear command structure. Think about the stretched supply lines. Damascus to Jerusalem. Distance. Modern every expeditionary force. Logistics. Tail. Vulnerability. Think about the fortress abandonment risk. Stripping garrisons gamble. Modern every calculated risk. Operational boldness versus caution. Think about the improvised tactics. Iron hedgehog, developed quickly. Modern rapid adaptation in combat. Innovate or die. Think about the crossbow reload time. Slower than bow but more powerful. Modern every weapons trade-off. Precision versus rate of fire. Think about the arrow penetration. Distance affects lethality. Modern every projectile. Effective range versus maximum range. Think about the shield wall. Ancient tactic. Still worked. Modern some principles timeless. Cover and concealment always matter. Think about the wedge formation. Knights charged in wedges. Modern armored spearheads. Concentrated force at point. Think about the flank protection. Formation covered flanks. Modern, every unit covers flanks. All-around defense. Think about the reserve employment. Knights held until needed. Modern reserves exploit opportunities. Never commit everything. Think about the wounded treatment. Pavis shields sheltered casualties. Modern battlefield medicine. Evolution. Combat medics. Medevac. Golden hour. Think about the pursuit decision. No pursuit after victory. Modern knowing when to stop. Mission creep danger. Think about the battlefield archaeology. Counting dead difficult. Modern casualty assessment challenges. Fog of war continues. Think about the chronicler bias. Both sides inflated claims. Modern information warfare. Every conflict has propaganda. Think about the religious justification. Both sides claimed God. Modern every ideological war. Righteousness claimed by all. Think about the tactical adaptation timeline. 5 years Belvoir to Hattin. Modern institutional learning cycles. After action reviews, think about the economic sustainability. Can't afford prolonged war. Modern every war's economic limit. Afghanistan, 20 years. How much? Think about the demographic limits. Can't replace night losses. Modern population as strategic resource. Small nations vulnerable. Think about the fortress maintenance cost. Expensive defensive network. Modern infrastructure costs. Maintaining bases worldwide expensive. Think about the cavalry training time. Years to train knight. Modern pilot training. Special forces. High-value personnel. Think about the morale weapon. Victory despite odds inspired. Modern propaganda value. Every underdog victory magnified. Think about the defeated mission. Saladin withdrew honorably. Modern saving face in defeat. Diplomatic off-ramps. Think about the terrain advantage. Hilltop castle, overlooked valley. Modern high ground advantage continues. Elevation equals power. Think about the coordination challenge. Multilingual Crusader army. Modern coalition communication problems. NATO. Win force. Think about the supply chain attack. Burning villages attacked economy. Modern interdiction. Operations. Bombing factories. Rails. Think about the siege equipment. Muslims brought catapults. Modern fire. Support. Evolution. Artillery. Airstrikes. Think about the volunteer fighters. Jihadis seeking paradise. Modern foreign fighters. ISIS volunteers. International brigades. Think about the slave soldiers. Mamluks were slaves. Modern conscription debates. Voluntary versus forced service. Think about the armor cost. 80 pounds equals village worth. Modern equipment costs. Fighter jets cost millions. Think about the warhorse breeding. Destriers rare. Expensive. Modern weapons, platforms. Carriers. Bombers. Complex systems, vulnerable. Think about the banner symbolism. Standards, rally troops. Modern flags. Unit insignia. Symbols matter for cohesion. Think about the siege mentality. Castle defenders watching villages burn. Modern every besieged city. Sarajevo. Aleppo. Helplessness watching destruction. Think about the frontier warfare. Constant raids, hardened troops. Modern low-intensity conflict experience. Veterans of multiple deployments. Think about the personal combat. Melee fighting individual. Modern infantry still closes with enemy. Fallujah, house to house. Think about the youth in command. Baldwin, 21 years old. Modern young leaders. Alexander, Napoleon. Age doesn't always correlate with ability. Think about the disease affecting command. Leprosy incapacitated Baldwin. Modern leaders' health. Illness can shape decisions. Think about the economic war concept. Systematic village destruction. Modern total war economics. Strategic bombing. Sanctions regime. Think about the refugee creation. 60 villages fled to Castle. Modern every war creates refugees. Displacement as weapon. Think about the trade route control. Reynald controlled Damascus-Egypt route. Modern choke points. Suez. Hormuz. Malacca. Geography is economics. Think about the caravan raiding. Medieval highway robbery. Modern piracy. Hijacking. Attacking commerce. Think about the ransom economy. Nobles worth fortunes. Modern hostage-taking. Kidnapping for ransom continues. Think about the Mamluk system. Slave soldiers most loyal. Modern elite force. Praetorian-style guards. Think about the composite bow technology. Superior to European bows. Modern technology diffusion. Simple weapons spread. Think about the mail armor. Chain mail, standard protection. Modern body armor evolution. Protection versus weight. Think about the lance charge. Primary night tactic. Modern shock tactics. Armored breakthroughs. Think about the curved saber. Slashing weapon on horseback. Modern weapons designed for platform. Think about the crossbow ban. Popes tried banning it as too deadly. Modern weapons bans. Chemical weapons. Landmines. Think about the castle architecture. Concentric walls. High placement. Modern fortification. Principles persist. Engineering matters. Think about the siege endurance. Months-long sieges possible. Modern Leningrad. Sarajevo. Sieges still happen. Think about the herald system. Formal challenges, messages, modern diplomacy, and back channels. Think about the chivalry code. Rules of knightly conduct. Modern laws of war. Think about the code violations. Reynald broke truce. Modern ceasefires broken. War crimes. Think about the religious orders. Templars. Hospitallers as military monks. Modern ideology-based units. Think about the multi-front war. Saladin fought in multiple theaters. Modern overextension risks. Think about the coalition building. Saladin united the Muslim world. Modern alliances matter. Think about the internal divisions. Crusader states squabbled. Modern coalition fractures. Think about the succession crisis. Baldwin, dying without stability. Modern leadership transitions. Think about the tactical surprise. Muslims shocked by formation. Modern unexpected tactics. Think about the doctrinal evolution. Learning from defeat. Modern institutional learning. Think about the write-up bias. Chroniclers exaggerated. Modern propaganda and spin. Think about the national myth. Crusades romanticized later. Modern selective memory. Think about the economic motivations. Trade routes and plunder. Modern resources drive conflict. Think about technology transfer. Wars accelerate innovation. Modern drones. Cyber. Think about logistics and communications. Drums. Horns then. Radios now. The principle stays. So what's the final lesson of Belvoir 1182? It's this tactical brilliance can doom you strategically. The Crusaders won the battle through revolutionary combined arms tactics. They proved that outnumbered forces could win through discipline, innovation, and superior coordination. But in winning, they taught their enemy exactly how to destroy them. Belvoir teaches us that wars aren't won by battles alone. Baldwin's iron hedgehog was tactically perfect. But Saladin learned the crucial lesson: don't fight the hedgehog. Starve it instead. Burn the villages that feed it. Destroy the economy that sustains it. 5 years later, at Hattin, Saladin didn't attack the Crusader army, he exhausted it. He denied them water in the July heat. He harassed them constantly. When they finally broke formation in desperation, he destroyed them. The kingdom of Jerusalem fell not because Crusaders lost their tactical edge, but because they lost their economic base. Belvoir teaches us about the cruel mathematics of war. You can win every battle and still lose the war if you can't sustain operations. The Crusaders couldn't replace losses. Saladin could draw on an empire from Egypt to Syria. Belvoir teaches us about combined arms. The Iron Hedgehog integrated infantry, cavalry, and missile troops in revolutionary ways. Every modern military uses this principle: tanks, infantry, artillery, air support, working together. Integration is a force multiplier. Belvoir teaches us about discipline under fire. Resisting the feigned retreat required superhuman discipline. Every military trains for this, maintaining formation under stress, resisting impulses that get you killed. Belvoir teaches us about economic warfare. Saladin's village burning wasn't random cruelty. It was strategic brilliance. Attack the economy, not just the army. Belvoir teaches us about innovation's temporary advantage. The Iron Hedgehog worked perfectly once, but enemies adapt. Tactics that work today won't work tomorrow. Innovate constantly or die. Belvoir teaches us about leadership despite adversity. Baldwin commanded from a litter, dying of leprosy. Physical limitations don't mean mental incapacity. Belvoir teaches us about the concentration dilemma. Defend everywhere equals weak everywhere. Concentrate equals leave areas exposed. Belvoir teaches us about casualty ratios. 11-1 sounds great, but if you can't replace the 1 and the enemy can replace the 11, you lose. Belvoir teaches us about the long game. Saladin lost the battle but won the war. Strategic patience beats tactical brilliance. And Belvoir teaches us that history is selective. Hattin is famous. Belvoir is forgotten. Yet Belvoir was tactically more impressive. If this exploration of medieval tactical brilliance taught you something, subscribe to Maproom Battles. Comment, can tactical victories lead to strategic defeat? Thanks for studying how battles teach enemies. Remember, the battle you win perfectly might teach your enemy how to destroy you. Learn from Belvoir.